Welcome to San Antonio's Influence Magazine show, the premier talk show where we introduce you to influential individuals doing significant work in the city of San Antonio and surrounding areas. Celebrate the spirit of business, leadership, and innovation. If this is your first time joining us and you'd like more information, you could find us at influencesa.com. That's influencesa.com. Like us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and for this particular episode of the show, all future and past episodes of the show, pull up your YouTube search bar, toss in San Antonio's Influence Magazine show. When you get there, please subscribe, give us a like or a thumbs up, and hit that bell so that you don't miss any future episodes of the show. Welcome to the show, folks. I'm your host, Cedric Fisher. Today's guest is someone I consider a mentor in the industry. Sonny Melendrez, an award-winning radio personality, voice actor, honoree of the Melendrez Community Center, and a keynote motivational speaker. From radio to community advocacy, his career reflects a lifelong commitment to authenticity and positivity. When we come back, we'll speak to Sonny. Stay tuned.
Ho, ho, ho! My name is St. Nicholas, and these are my two lovely helpers. I want to tell you about a nice children's book this holiday season called
Danielle and the Pee-Pee Monster, a new book for kids by author P.G. Taylor. Available for sale today on Amazon.com. This is a story about a young girl named Danielle who has a bit of trouble with wetting the bed. But with encouragement from her new pal, the Pee-Pee Monster, and her mom, everything becomes so much better.
Buy your copy of Danielle and the Pee-Pee Monster today. It makes a great gift. Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas from P.G. Taylor.
Sonny, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Cedric. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
It's good to see you again. It's been a little while.
Same here.
I often tell people the story of how I got started with this show about 3 years ago. And the first individual I sat down with to pick your brain was Sonny Melendrez.
I remember that. Yeah, you had great visions for this, and look at what you've done. You know, you've really done a great job, and I'm honored to be among the guests that you've chosen all along the way. So.
It's our privilege.
Pleasure.
Absolutely. So let's start at the beginning. For most folks in this region know you, but for that small percentage that may not be aware of your background, take us all the way to the beginning of your background.
Sure. So I grew up here in San Antonio. My dad had a little two-seat barbershop at the corner of Nolan and Pine Streets on the east side, a little strip center, and he moved us in there. I guess I was maybe 10 or 12 years old. And the reason he moved us into the barbershop, because it wasn't even, Cedric, it wasn't even a full address. It was 908 and a half Nolan Street. Half was a print shop, half was my dad's barbershop. And he partitioned half of it. And my mom, dad, and my little brother and myself lived in that back. In fact, our living area was smaller than this room. And the reason we lived there was so that my father could make good on a promise he'd made to my mom that when they had kids, they would go to Catholic school. And so I went to St. Michael's School, which was close to downtown, and then to Central Catholic. And that was made possible by the sacrifices of my mom and my dad. In fact, my dad, I can remember this. I was a shoe shine boy at the barbershop after school and on the weekends. And every time my dad made a few dollars, he'd give them to me. And I'd run down to the corner drugstore, Prassel's Drugs, and I'd come back with a handful of quarters. And in between the two barber chairs, he had this little cabinet, and inside were 6 cigar boxes. And he would put a quarter inside each one. One was for rent, one was for clothing, one was for food, etc. And one of them was for our education. So Cedric, he got his family by a quarter at a time. Pretty amazing.
How about that?
And he made every dollar stretch. In fact, around Christmas time, we would get our Christmas tree on Christmas Eve because you could get a better deal at the Christmas tree lot.
Yeah.
But one of the greatest things he did for me and my brother was to build what I call a dream machine in our backyard. Our backyard is actually the parking lot of the strip center. But there was this big tree, and he built a treehouse, and I would go up there and dream about places I'd go, things I'd see, people I'd meet. I had no qualms about dreaming big because I was enthralled with radio and television. And I knew that one day I was going to be on the radio. One day I was going to be on KTSA. I would spend my allowance on batteries for my little transistor radio, and I would fall asleep listening, saying to myself, one day that's going to be me, one day. The other one happened when I was actually the three dreams. The second dream happened when I was watching my favorite cartoon show, Yogi Bear.
Yogi Bear.
And it dawned on me that people were doing these voices of the cartoons. And I thought, what a great job that would be. I'm going to do that. And so I found out that I had this uncanny ability to mimic these voices. And my first voice was Yogi Bear, who says, hey, 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 I'm Yogi Bear, smarter than the average bear. And what was his little friend's name?
Boo Boo.
Yogi, we're going to get in trouble with the ranger. Don't worry about a thing, little boo-boo. And so I learned to do that voice, and then another voice, and then pretty soon I started collecting these voices, but in my mind, I knew that one day I was going to be doing the voices of different cartoon characters. And the third dream happened when I would watch the Mickey Mouse Club. And I would watch all these kids my age having all this fun, and I thought to myself, I want to be a part of that. One day I'm going to work for Walt Disney. So those were the three dreams. And as time went on, I got an incredible education at Catholic school at St. Michael's, and then Central Catholic was just a wonderful a place to start and establish myself as a young man, and then San Antonio College. And I was the first in my family to go to college. And I can remember going on registration day, and my heart was beating. I was just, because when you go to college and you've never been to a campus like that before, you don't know what to expect.
Very intimidating. It's a big move.
Exactly. And so I remember I was going to be an artist because I love to draw and paint. And so I'd gotten all my classes, and I'm walking down this hall in one of the buildings, and I see this door with a little square window like they'd have at the radio stations. And I thought, why would they have that here? So I peeked into the window, and I saw the most beautiful sight I'd ever seen. It was a small radio control board and a little microphone, and now my head was spinning. And somebody from maintenance was walking by. I said, what is that? He says, oh, that's the radio TV department. Radio TV? What for what? Well, you get a degree in radio TV. You get a degree in radio. I made a beeline for the closest phone, called my dad, asked him if I could change my major. He said, son, this is what you've always wanted. And I did. And that became the launching pad for my entrance into the world of entertainment. And lucky for me, it was just the first year of the radio TV department. And this teacher, her name was Jean Longworth. Now they have a building named after her. She was an incredible teacher. And so she made me one of the first program directors of the radio station. And I would literally live there. If I wasn't in class, I was at the radio station. And I was recording, I was playing music, I was doing everything I could. And these are things that I had done at home. And a little tip, if you're ever wanting to do something, don't wait to have the right situation, the professionalism and everything else to do it. Just do it. That's why a lot of times you'll see kids on America's Got Talent, and they'll have these background, and they'll show that they were in their room. They used to sing with a hairbrush. All that is giving yourself the idea that you've done it before. You're giving yourself that experience, and your subconscious doesn't know that it was professional or anything. They're just saying, hey, Cedric, you've done this before. You've done this.
Okay.
So I would do that at home. I had a little record player. This is when I was 10, 12, 13 years old. And I had my little recorder, and I had like maybe 45 records, and I'd play them over and over and introduce them and talk just like they did on the radio and make these little recordings. And then I would play them on the phone for my friends. But we didn't have a phone exactly. Our phone was the payphone inside the barbershop. So my dad would give me 3 dimes. I'd go into the barbershop in the dark, sit on the shoe shine stand chair next to the payphone on the wall, and dial one friend at a time and say, hey, I got a new show, listen. And I would play these little, for all I knew, they put the phone down and came back and said, okay, I got to go. But I was doing it. So by the time I got to college, I'd already done that. I'm doing it more now. And from there, I went to El Paso, because my mother's part of the family is from El Paso, and I lived with my aunt and went to UTEP. It was Texas Western. It was around the time they changed the name from Texas Western to UTEP, University of Texas at El Paso. And that's when I got my first job. It was working at the #1 station on Sunday mornings from 5 a.m. until noon. As you well know, most radio shifts are 3 to 4 hours. This was 7 hours.
Oh, my.
Cedric,
Wow.
I would look at the clock and I would say to myself, oh, good, I still have. Oh, good, I still have. I didn't want it to end. I thought, how can anybody have this much fun and get paid for it? I was making a whopping $1.25 an hour, and I thought I had died and gone to heaven. And it wasn't long before the competition, a little daytime station, came knocking, and they asked, how much you making over there? I said, $1.25 an hour. I didn't laugh. I thought it was a lot. I was doing well. And they said, how'd you like to make $1.50, work full time? Well, could life get any better?
Pay raise.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And so that's when I became a broadcaster. That's when I learned the trade of being what it takes to be in radio and to broadcast. But I also learned something else, and that was public service. So we started doing all these public service projects.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to give you a long answer.
No, this is good. This is great. Absolutely.
I told Cedric before we started that if he wanted to, just ask me one question, and then he could go take a break, and I'd interview myself.
That's outstanding. So, and your advice to aspiring or emerging journalists is to see it first, or media folks
absolutely. Yeah, with
see it
anything.
in your mind.
Yes, absolutely.
Practice at home.
In fact, I'm a motivational speaker, and one of the things I speak about, actually my signature presentation, is the power of unleashing your power of intentional enthusiasm. In other words, you can be intentional about everything you do, and when you are, you become a magnet for whatever it is you're wanting to do. And there's three pillars to intentional enthusiasm. The first one is belief in yourself, vision, visualize exactly what you want, and the third one is show your gratitude along the way by helping others that'll cross your path. And so my advice is to do those three things, but also to not wait. Back then, there wasn't such a thing as an intern at radio or TV stations. You were pretty much a gopher, or you just a pest. You would just kind of hang out, and hopefully they would bring you in or whatever.
Yeah.
But now there's all these programs where you can be an intern, and I've never known an intern at either a radio station or a TV station that has applied to themselves that didn't end up getting a full-time job. In some cases, they go on to the top and they become the general manager.
Sure.
There are stories like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sonny, you've been named Billboard Magazine's National Radio Personality twice. National Radio Personality of the Year. And you've been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's top 100 radio personalities of all time.
Included. There's a difference between being inducted and included.
Included.
Yeah, there is a. If you go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, there is an exhibit. Originally was called "This is dedicated to the one I love," and they've got the 100 radio personalities of all time. In fact, you can actually you read about each one of them, and then you also put your headsets on and listen to a collage of their programming. But that's the honor that I have.
So you're in that.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think has set your style apart from other voices on the air?
I think the sooner you find your authentic voice, one of the dangers, or I should say maybe one of the habits that we all have when we idolize somebody, is to try and sound exactly like them, to imitate them. And so what you become is you become a clone of whoever it is you're trying to be, as opposed to being inspired to become your own personality. And it took me a while, because for the longest time you hear early versions of my show, I'm sounding like a radio guy. Hey everybody, it's and doing the voice of somebody that I either idolized or heard or whatever.
Sure.
And then when you get your own voice, now that's where the fun starts, because you get to breathe, you get to just literally connect with the audience, and that's where people start to gravitate toward you, and that's why they'll stop you and they'll say, I remember you said this, and it was like 10 years ago that you said it. I'll never forget that. That's because you connected with them on the radio. Radio is and always will be the most magical of all mediums, because everyone listening to any radio show has an idea of what it looks like, and every one of them has a different vision of what they hear and what they see in their mind as a result of radio. And no other medium can do that.
So they have a different vision of what the studio looks like?
Yeah,
or
everything.
What the setup looks like?
Exactly, yeah.
And which includes the radio personality.
Yes, exactly. And now that we have podcasting, now that we have all these different shows, when you have a radio show, a lot of times people will listen. Let's say they've listened to a show for years, and then one day they're able to see the show, and they see it and they go, oh, is that how? I thought it was a bigger studio. I thought it was this. I thought it was that. See?
Yeah.
And that's kind of, it's like pulling the curtain from the Wizard of Oz, the Great Oz. You want to have that magic be a part of the experience.
Yeah. You've spent time on the radio in Los Angeles and obviously San Antonio. What are some of the differences in the culture, and how has it shaped your career?
Well, as far as the listeners are concerned, there's no difference. The listeners in Los Angeles, I still have listeners from Los Angeles who now listen to my podcast, and they will tell me about my days in LA. But as far as culture is concerned, it's really just a question of how big a radio station is. I really was so blessed to land at what was arguably the #1 personality music station in America. That was KMPC in Hollywood. If you've seen the building and you lived in Los Angeles, it looks like the White House.
Right.
It's the most incredible building, because it used to be a big sound stage there on the lot. And the amazing part of it was, when I was there, I was working with the greats. Gary Owens, who was on Laugh-In, Wink Martindale, who hosted Tic-Tac-Toe, Jeff Edwards, Clark Race, every personality. In fact, they had a decal on the stationery that says, KMPC in Hollywood has more radio personalities hosting national television shows than any other station in America. Pretty amazing. And I was doing segments on a kids show called Kids Are People Too. And what I had learned about that, Cedric, especially looking back, is that I had earned my right to be there. These guys were a good 10 to 20 years older than me, but because I had earned my right to be there, I had the goods, otherwise I would not have been hired. Mm-hmm. And then they also were very welcoming and respectful of that, so we got to work together, and it made for an incredible radio station. And so that was one culture. Now you come to a market like San Antonio.
Yeah.
It's not as big a market.
Smaller market.
But that doesn't make the magic and the importance of the radio station and what you can do on the airwaves here that you can do there.
Right.
And we get better by doing what we love. And that's why you have people who are on their way somewhere else, or who have literally found an incredible home. You know, there's nothing like being able to do what you love and do it in a place where you want to live and are blessed to be. And that's what San Antonio has been.
Absolutely. You've done voice acting for Disney, ABC, DreamWorks, and other projects. How does that kind of performance differ from a radio performance, let's say?
Well, when you're doing, when you're talking about character voices, that's one.
Right.
Okay,
Voiceovers.
Character voice is one thing. Voiceovers and are another. With character voices,
So those are two separate things.
Sure. Because character voices, like let's say, for instance, I was called in to do the voice of Snap, Crackle, Pop, Kellogg's Rice Krispies.
Sure.
Right, and so the voice was, or the line was, Kellogg's Rice Krispies, part of a good nutritious breakfast. Now, if I just did it in my voice and said Kellogg's Rice Krispies, part of a good nutritious breakfast, that's not Snap. But if I said Kellogg's Rice Krispies, part of a good nutritious breakfast, that's Snap. And so now you have to be part of that character. You know, one of the first jobs I got was an agent called me one day. I was on at KMPC, and he said, "Have you ever thought about doing cartoon work?" I said, "Are you kidding? Since I was a kid." Again, it's the whole thing of that vision when you're a child, and all of a sudden here comes to fruition. And he said, "Let me have a sampling of your voices, and let me see what I can do." So 2 weeks later, Cedric, he calls me and says, "All right, you've got your first job." And he gave me the address, and this is where you have to be, 10 o'clock. And I said, but I didn't audition. So they loved your voices. You know, they want to have you. And so I can remember driving my little Ford Maverick into the parking lot of the Hanna-Barbera studios, the home of Yogi and Boo Boo. And I wasn't there as an intern. I wasn't there as a visitor. I was there to do voices with the original cast of the Jetsons for the second season.
Sure.
Now keep in mind, these people, these voices, Jane, daughter Judy, George Jetson, Astro, Elroy. When I was a kid, I'd listen to those voices. I'm now in the studio with them, and I'm going to work with them. So inside, I'm jumping up and down. I'm going, I can't believe this. Oh my God! And I'm just. But on the outside, oh, I love your work. Pleasure. I'm looking forward to working with you. And so we got down to work, and the incredible part of it was, even it can be any more incredible, was the fact that George Jetson's boss was Mr. Spacely, the Spacely Sprocket Company. That's where he worked. And the voice of Mr. Spacely was the great Mel Blanc. The voice of Bugs Bunny, Sylvester, Tweety, all those incredible Warner Brothers cartoons. Well, he taught me that the ladder of life is this. No matter where you are, someone is bound to be able and wanting to help you get to where they are. And with your other arm, you always are in a position to pull someone up to where you are. And that's what he did. He not only gave me incredible coaching on doing cartoon work, but taught me a lot of his voices. I mean, that's very unusual. That's like a singer, saying, I'm going to teach you how to sing like me. But it was just an amazing experience. And then that led to all kinds of other things. I was the voice of the bug on the Raid commercial that says, "Oh no, it's Raid!" I was also the voice of Fred the Cockatoo, Beretta's bird, in the series with Robert Blake.
I remember that.
Yeah. Hello, Beretta. Oh. And then, in fact, when I was here in San Antonio, I auditioned for the voice of the parquet talking tub. Better, parquet. And it also gives you an idea that because of the day and age that we live in, there's no reason why you can't do what you love to do and live where you want to live. See, the internet didn't exist back then.
Right.
So when the internet came, it was it was made for everything that I did.
Just open
radio,
the world
TV,
up to
yeah, exactly.
Sure.
But to answer your question about the difference between that kind of voices and being on the radio, it's a whole other thing because you're actually doing someone else's direction. And same thing with voiceovers. If they want you to be warm and friendly and believable in a commercial, and they give you the copy and you've got to read it, you didn't write that. These are not your words. These are someone else's words, but you have to make them your own. Hence the title voice actor.
Yeah.
As opposed to announcer.
Did you go through any formal training for these voices, or?
Nope. There's a great saying that I love to quote. It's a Chinese saying that translated says, "The work will show you how." And so if you throw yourself into the work, and another one I love is there's two the two best times to grow a tree are 20 years ago and today. And so many times we give ourselves all these excuses of why we can't start. I don't have that. Well, Cedric, he's got this, and you just kind of talk yourself out of it. And if you can get past that and just take that first step, the next step, and then get into that rhythm and look back and say, look what I did. Look at this. Then you start seeing it.
So you've had various positions over your career. What's your favorite?
I have been in front of a camera, behind a microphone, or on stage literally since I was a teenager, maybe even younger than that. I think in fifth grade was when I first discovered a microphone. They asked me to announce the winners of a contest at the school fair. And so not only was I announcing, but I was also telling jokes. And I was getting laughs. Okay. And I thought, oh my goodness. And then when I was at Central Catholic, I was a senior at Central Catholic High School, and they were going to have the big thing on TV was hootenannies, which was all these folk singers. It was back in the days of all the folk singers, Peter, Paul, and Mary, and just all these great folk singers. So they were going to have a hootenanny, and it was all going to be students from all the Catholic high schools performing with their guitars. There were trios, singles, etc. And the guy in charge was at my high school, and I said to him, I said, listen, if you're going to have the hootenanny, you got to have the comedy interlude. Melendrez, what's with the comedy interlude? Says, they always have a comedian on TV in between the show, and I can do that. I've got an act. What are you going to do? I said, I've got an act. Well, we'll see. That's all he said. We'll see. That we'll see became, for me, it's going to happen. And so I had my act, I had all the voices I was going to do, everything else, and I show up It was at the gym at Incarnate Word High School. It was in the round. They had a stage in the middle of the gym, and everybody's sitting down, and just like on Hootenanny on TV. And so now the program has got everybody's going, and I'm not on the program. There is no comedy interlude, but I'm in the bathroom rehearsing for something that isn't even there. So now, after the break at the half, the guy says, "Hey, Melendrez, you still got that act?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Okay, we're going to put you on because the first act of the second half didn't show up." And that was it.
There you go.
I went on stage, and I think I said something like, "Cool it," got a laugh, and that was it. I mean, I was, okay, if you guys are laughing at that, wait to hear what's coming next. And so, to answer your question, I love, no matter where I am, if I'm in a position to bring a smile to someone, to make them laugh, to encourage them, and in some cases even inspire them, then that's where I want to be.
You're a happy camper.
I am.
We're going to take a break. We will be right back with the legendary Sonny Melendrez.
I don't remember how it started. Our back and forth. Victory. Fumble. Repeat. It always came back.
Dad!
Okay, here we go, throw it!
Yeah.
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Nice.
The Sonny Melendrez Community Center here on the West Side bears your name for your support of local youth programs. What's the honor mean to you? And how do you think the center continues to impact the community?
Oh, wow. Well, Cedric, I tell you, it is one of the highest honors that someone can get. You know, usually you have to die for someone to name a building after you, but that was really a surprise for me. I came home one day, and my wife Linda, she said, "The city is going to announce something, and you're going to be very pleased." I said, "What is it?" "I can't tell you." And so there was going to be like this big tribute dinner, and that's when they announced it, that they were renaming the Monterey Park Community Center to be the Sonny Melendrez Community Center. And it was really a wonderful culmination of so many different things. The moment that I came back to San Antonio in 1985, I did not say no to anything anyone asked me. I couldn't do enough. And keep in mind, I'm doing a morning radio show that you have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning for, but I would, after the show was over, I'd be off, I'd be at schools, I'd be at hospitals. I couldn't give enough of myself. And I always tell people there's like 3 or 4 of me out there doing all these things. But as a result of that, then the city, paid me this wonderful honor. And so for the last 20-something years, almost going on 30 years, I have the honor of being the go-between those who live on one side of town to those who live on the other side of town, those who don't have maybe all the things that they could have, but yet at the same time, because the center is run by Parks and Recreation, I cannot say enough great things about the San Antonio Parks and Recreation Department. They've got to be one of the finest, if not the finest, in the country. What they do for so many young people, and at the Sonny Melendrez Community Center, we have kids there whose stories would break your heart. I mean, amazing what the staff does there. Alex Charles is in charge, and he and his staff do these, and Valerie and all the wonderful people there. They do so much for these children, and in some cases they almost become their surrogate parents, because that's their oasis in the middle of the West Side, and some of the poor sections of our city. But at the same time, there's so much joy that happens. You see, that center, before it got renamed, was nothing more than a cinder block, unair-conditioned gym. That's it. And so when the city renamed it, they also passed a bond. It was almost a $1 million bond to renovate it and add an activity center and so many other things. So that whole park there has got every sport you can think of. And so when kids come there, they can participate. We just built a whole set of pickleball courts, and even the tennis courts have been repositioned in such a way that now the West Side, kids on the West Side can have all those wonderful things. And so what I've done is had all these different drives. Like we just gave 100 turkeys and all the trimmings, thanks to another organization called Thanksgiving in the Barrio. And we've done that year after year. Toys at Christmas time, bicycles, Christmas trees. We had a 3-on-3 basketball tournament where the high schoolers came, but the only way they could participate was to go inside the gym for a big college fair. And they went from one college to another and find out all this information about what they can do and how they can get into college. And that's really also a great thing about San Antonio College and Alamo colleges, is if you want to go to college, there's no reason why you can't. They will find a way for you to go to college. The scholarships are there. All these wonderful programs are there. And then when you get there, it's like you're with a family, and you see people like yourself who have come from the same kind of backgrounds, and now you have all these supports. Like at San Antonio College, we've got a whole program where parents can bring their children, and while they're in class, their children are being cared for. The same thing with the food bank. We have all kinds of ways for them to go in and get groceries at the Advocacy Center. They can walk in just like you would at an H-E-B and get groceries that they would need. And if they need clothes for a job interview, they've got a whole section of clothes that you can go in and get. I mean, it's so compassionate, but at the same time, it's just a wonderful way of San Antonio. See, I think that San Antonio, when I speak at conferences, I say welcome to the birthplace of hospitality. It's not the humidity, it's the hospitality.
Hospitality. And
And that's what people always talk about, how friendly people are, And usually it's the cab driver, it's somebody at the airport who welcomed them, and they've got all these wonderful people that will show you what you need to know of where the city is. It's where different parts of the city that they can get all kinds of different amenities. It's just an incredible, wonderful experience, and people come here from all over the world, and they and it's not by accident. It's because that's in our DNA. Those of us who grew up here are fortunate to not only grow up here, but also those who came, in some cases, in the military and fell in love with the city. They got transferred somewhere else, but when they retired, they want to come back to San Antonio. And you find that in many ways.
outstanding. Your name on a building, that's a big deal,
Oh,
Sonny.
it really is. But it's such an honor, and I don't take it lightly. And I'm just I'm so thrilled to be able to work with Parks and Rec and all the great programs that they have.
Would you consider that your greatest achievement, or maybe there's something?
Well, that I think that's probably the greatest honor that I've received, and I'm so humbled by it. But there's another one that happened quite by accident. In 1985, the #1 song around the world was "We Are the World."
We Are the World. We all remember that.
It was called by USA for Africa, and of course it was every major star you could think of, from Bob Dylan to In fact, Quincy Jones put together this incredible ensemble. In fact, there was a night of the Grammys. That's why they were all ready to go. It was after the Grammys. They all came, and he had to marshal. In fact, Netflix just did a special called "The Greatest Night in Pop." It's all about that experience and that song. Well, I woke up. I was on the radio in Los Angeles at the time, and had an afternoon radio show. And that morning, I woke up, and I heard a child singing, "We are the world, we are the children." And I thought to myself, oh, a children's version of We Are the... Of course, oh, why didn't I think of that? But then, in my groggy state, Cedric, as I continued to wake up, I realized that I was listening to the original, and it was Michael Jackson whose voice I heard. So that afternoon, I go on the air, I tell the story, and I said out loud, I said, I wonder if there are any children and parents who would want to be a part of the children's version of We Are the World, so that children could have their own version. Then we could sell the song, sell the recording, and they can now do their part to raise money for the starving children in Ethiopia. Well, you can imagine, Southern California, we were inundated with calls day after day, all throughout my show, every day for the next week. So we ended up having all these auditions, and we ended up auditioning over 1,500 children. And from that, we had 50. And so you can imagine what that choir sounded like. Those angelic voices, incredible.
There was a time when we heeded call, when the world must come together as one. There are people dying, and it's time to lend a hand to life, the greatest gift of all.
It snowballed to the point where we now had all these other people's entities wanting to be a part of it. A recording studio. We had George Duke, the Grammy Award-winning producer, who's going to produce it. He brought in Stanley Clarke, Philip Bailey, Stephen Smith of Journey. They put together a track, and then he did something brilliant. He had the little ones, the 5 and 6 year olds in one group. He had the preteens, and then he had the teens. So we recorded it in the studio. In fact, Michael Jackson had recorded in the same studio, and we filmed the whole thing. And I kept thinking about the other 1,450 kids who didn't make it. And by the way, when we auditioned them, we literally, no matter what they sounded like, gave them a standing ovation. There were 3 judges, and they would stand up and they would applaud. That's great. And then we would give them a T-shirt and a certificate, so they felt proud about having come and being a part of the whole experience. But we, of course, could only choose 50. Well, then the idea came that why don't we have the video, first part of the video, the song, will be in the studio, but the second half will have all the kids, all 1,500 of them, at Griffith Park. And so we did. And you can imagine, this is Hollywood. We had cranes, the drones didn't exist. And we had all this equipment, all donated, everything. Even the wax for the record, the 45 records, was donated, everything. And so you see this hill, it's like a little hilltop, and then all of a sudden out come all these children, 1,500 of them, all singing, "We are the world, we are the children." I mean, I've seen it over 1,000 times, and I cannot I cannot stop myself from getting teary-eyed when I see it. It is just the most incredible, wonderful experience, and everyone who worked on it feels the same way. I've spoken to the people that worked in the technical side, just literally everything. And then we had a reunion a while back, a 25-year reunion, and many of the kids came and they all said that those who had not gone on to stardom in some cases with their careers had gone into areas working with children. And they all look back at that experience and how important it was in their life. In fact, the record, 45 record, was released, but on the flip side, because when you have a 45, you have to have a flip side.
Right.
So we had another song that I'd heard from two songwriters in New Zealand called Care for Kids. And there was a little part in the front, in the beginning of the song, where there's two voices. And George Duke said, "Sonny, why don't you sing it with little Stacy Ferguson?" She was a 7-year-old. You sing the first two lines, and then the group comes in and they sing the rest of the song. And so I did, and Stacy Ferguson became Fergie in her grown-up years.
Wow.
Yeah. So I tell people I was the first person to do a duet with Fergie.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And then we found out, and of course then the proceeds went to USA for Africa, but then the icing on the cake happened the following year when we found out that the song had been nominated for a Grammy, all because of a misheard voice.
Yeah.
So life gives us so many incredible, wonderful serendipities. And when you are looking for those serendipities, that's when you find them. And sometimes they're just right there. And I think that a lot of it has to do with being childlike in your vision of the world. Not all the time, but letting that kid come out and play. We're not just the age we are. We're every age we ever were. Think about that. Inside you, there's a 5-year-old Cedric, a 12-year-old, an 18-year-old, a 25-year-old. And if you can go through that file cabinet of all those wonderful memories from all those different perspectives, all of a sudden you see the light, you see the world in a whole different light. And you can have that whenever you want. It's not exclusive. You don't have to be born with it. Think about it. Babies are not born prejudiced. Babies are not born angry. They're babies. They become a product of their environment. Some of us are very fortunate to have had a really good environment, and some of us aren't. But there's no reason why you can't get back to being the way God made you.
So repeat that again. You're not just the age you are.
You're every age you ever were.
Wow. That's brilliant. Brilliant. It's beautiful. You've made quite a reputation as a motivational speaker, a powerful, in-demand motivational speaker. What are one of the great messages that you'd like to leave with your audiences?
I think, one of the things that I learned a long time ago, somebody said this to me when I came off stage at one of the comedy clubs in Los Angeles, and they were laughing at every joke I had, and I thought this is it.
Yep.
I've arrived.
I'm the man
right,
tonight.
right.
Yeah.
And another comedian says, "Can I give you some advice?" And I said, "Yeah." She says, "Don't take yourself too seriously." and that's true. We tend to take ourselves in many cases too seriously. And we're not, a lot of people think that without their title or without their job, that's really who they are. And you take that away and you've taken what they think they are. But it's not that. Our job more than anything else is to be kind and to help others along the way. There's a great, wonderful, in fact, it's my favorite saying. It was said by a Stoic, a philosopher who lived in the first century. His name is Philo of Alexandria. And he said, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a great battle." And how powerful that is. I mean, this is hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and now it applies to us. It just goes to show you that human beings have always had this experience. The world has always been in turmoil, and there's always been something that you have to, you'll find something that you can worry about. But when you have that vision, not only of what it is you want to accomplish, but more than that, to help other people. You know, I had an elderly lady who was she was lost in a medical center in Los Angeles, and she was walking down the hall. I just come out of my dentist's office, and she looked like she was looking for something. And I said, "Can I help you?" She says, "I'm looking for Dr. Brown. Do you know what Dr. Brown's office is?" I said, "No, but we'll find out. Let's go to the directory over here." She had a brace on. She'd been in an accident. And I looked at the directory. There's no Dr. Brown. I said, tell you what, I'll call information, and we'll get to his office, find out where he is. "You would do this for me?" I said, "Of course. I mean, she's somebody's mom. I'd want somebody to do that for my mom." So I call. Sure enough, it's in another building across the way. There was construction going on. And so I'm taking her across the street. Her name was Mrs. Rosenberg. Mm-hmm. And so there we are. 5 minutes ago, Cedric, we were strangers. But now we're a couple. We're walking slowly. It was a beautiful day. And she looked at me and she said what I think is a secret of life. She said, "You know, we're all here to help each other, aren't we?" Mm-hmm. That's it. Mm-hmm. We're all here to help each other. Mm-hmm. That's all. Just help somebody.
That's great.
Yeah. And when you wake up in the morning, mm-hmm. and it's kind of like you're reporting for duty. My brother and I do this. We're ready for anything. It's like if there's a door to be held open, if there's something if there's a big project that needs to be taken, we're all about it. And I think that those are our opportunities. But that's when I think you are the happiest. I think we are never happier than when we are in the service of others.
Yeah. So the takeaway that you leave with your audience is don't take yourself too seriously.
Right.
You're here to serve.
Right.
And be more childlike.
Right. And you know what else? We talk about random acts of kindness. They say that one act of kindness actually affects 3 people initially. The person receiving it, the person giving it, and the person who witnesses it or hears about it. And from there, they say it goes out to at least 50 people. And sometimes even more than that. And it doesn't matter who you are or where you are. I remember one time I was listening to a radio talk show, and I heard it was one of these things where people are calling in about restaurants and giving a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And this one lady called up. It was around lunchtime. She said, "I was just at the Bill Miller on such and such road, and we were all in line. It was a big long line, the rush hour. It was lunchtime, and there was an elderly lady in front of us, and she didn't understand the concept of how the ordering worked. And the young lady behind the counter was explaining to her all the different things that she could have. You can have this, or you can have this plate, or you can have that." So I'm in my car listening to this, and I'm expecting her to say, "Can you believe that she made us wait in the middle of this of lunchtime?" But that's not what I heard. So we were so impressed by how that young lady treated this elderly woman that we gave her an ovation. We applauded her. Mm-hmm. And I have told that story probably at least 100 times. So everyone who hears that, think about that. It all started with that young lady on the other side of the counter. Is she on television? Is she on radio? No. She did something kind, and someone benefited, and someone got inspired, and someone told someone else. That's the power that we have with every waking day.
Outstanding. We're going to take a quick break. We're coming right back with Sonny Melendrez.
It's true, we make a better day, just you and me.
My name's Stacy, I'm 57, and I was adopted in 2020.
We were adopted in 2019.
And we were adopted in 2021.
We had a house, and it sounds crazy, but it wasn't a home. The one thing that Jake and Emma brought is it became a home.
When I met Dakota, he had just turned 14.
You weren't there for the first this and the first that. I missed the first words, but we got a lot of other firsts.
Watching her say, oh my God, I cannot believe I got my license. And she's like, I passed. And I'm like, girl.
See them grow. It is.
They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
You and you.
Kids in the middle.
What I thought was a complete life was nowhere near complete, but it is now.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Do you have advice for young broadcasters or creatives who want to make their mark authentically? How can they get started and tune and stay true to themselves in a profession like this?
First thing you want to do, and I do this whenever I coach someone, I said, if you could wave a magic wand and trade places with anyone in the world, who would that be? And if it's someone on radio, on television, someone who's a speaker, etc., now work backwards and say, how did they get to where they are? And if it's someone who's still alive that is very successful, try to reach out to them. You'll be surprised how many people will respond, because they were where you are, and if they remember what it was like, they will, take advantage of the fact that they can help somebody else who's starting out.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The other thing is, if you want to get run over, you got to play in traffic. In other words, you've got to go out and go to where the things are going. If you're going to go to a conference, go to the conference and make a contact with whoever is on stage and find out about them. Nowadays we have whenever you want to be a speaker, one of the best ways to start speaking is to join Toastmasters. And I'm sure you're familiar with Toastmasters.
Yeah.
Because
you recommended it to me.
Exactly, I did. Yeah. We've had this conversation.
That's right.
And Toastmasters, this is so great about Toastmasters. Imagine this. You're a comedian and you're at a comedy club and there's all these other comedians in the audience. In fact, there's people there's the audience, but there's other comedians and they're waiting to go on. Now you go on, you do your jokes and everything, and the audience laughs or doesn't laugh. You come off, the comedians that are going up, they're not very likely to give you a joke that they thought of when you were on stage. Toastmasters switches that all around. So now imagine you're a comedian, you go on stage, and the audience is nothing but comedians. Mm-hmm. And they laugh at everything you've got. They're just there. They want you to succeed. If it's mildly funny, they're laughing for you. Now afterwards, each one of them gives you a note that says, Cedric, you got to do this joke. You have to add this word, and it'll be funnier. And all this. That's what Toastmasters is. Mm-hmm. After you finish your speech, whatever it is that you're speaking about, right. 5 minutes, 10 minutes,
yeah.
You get all this wonderful input, all this support. That's your gym. That's your Gold's Gym of speaking. Now with radio, it's more of being at the radio station. Find a way to get into that station. Find a way to get into an internship, and gravitate towards those people that will help you. There are some people who won't help you, yeah. Who don't even want you to be there. Don't let that deter you. And the same thing with television. with television, and at the same time, all the while, practice where you are. You know, when I've got a big speech, in fact, I've got one that I'm working on now, I will get up very early and practice in the kitchen. I used to be with our dogs. We don't have them anymore, unfortunately, but you tend to do what you want to do, and when you do it, you're able to give yourself that experience, so that once you get on stage and you've imagined everything, and then here's another little tip. When you go to sleep, the most important time of your waking day is the first 30 minutes. The second most important are the last 30 minutes. So as you're falling asleep, rather than regurgitate all these things you're worried about, think about what it is you want to happen in any given situation. Maybe it's a project, maybe it's something that's going on in your life, etc. But ask yourself, this is the title of my next book, what's the best that can happen? What's the best that can happen? Because things are never the way you think they're going to be.
Yeah. And
once that rolls around and you try to find what's the best that can happen, that's when sometimes, and not more than not, the best does happen.
Life typically gives you what you expect of it.
Yeah.
So visualize it.
Exactly.
In its best form, and
exactly,
you may get that.
And you know, as speakers, because I know you're a speaker as well, we're really not telling people something they don't already know. What we are, more than anything else, is messengers of reminders. We remind them about this. Remind them that they used to be a kid. Remind them that there's other things in their life to be grateful for. And that's really the engine for all of it. It's all gratitude. You will always find something to be grateful for. You can. If nothing less, it's the air that you're breathing, to live another day. You know, it's just it's a gift that we all sometimes take for granted.
Couple final questions. You may need to think about this one for a minute. What's the one thing people don't know about you but should?
I don't know that they should, but I think, well, yeah, you know, it's important to always have a dream, no matter where you are in your life. In fact, I wrote a blog post titled, "At What Age Should You Stop Dreaming?" It's like, okay, I can stop dreaming now, and I don't think there is any age. But one of the things that I've wanted to do ever since I was a kid, and now even more so, I would like to deliver, now that I'm a speaker, I would like to deliver my message from space.
Okay.
I just can't tell you how.
So you want to go to space first,
yes,
of course.
Yes.
And then deliver a message from space. Okay. Unpack that a little bit.
Well, I've always been, you know, I found that, you know, you can rehearse and you can structure all the things that you want to say, but once you get on stage, on the radio, on television, your thoughts and your feelings and your heart takes on a whole different entity. And now that's when you've really connected with your audience. You know, this all experience right here is, you know, imagine if we had rehearsed all this. Imagine if we had a script. You know, what that would do to you know, how entertaining that would be, or not. People watching saying, what are they doing? You know? Whereas when you let your heart do the talking, and that's what I visualize. I visualize literally being inspired by where I was, what I was witnessing, and also what my heart wanted the world to know.
Okay. Last question. We have the privilege of, this is a leadership show, and we have the privilege of meeting some phenomenal leaders, learning their stories. One of the things we've all concluded, me and the crew here, is that all leaders are readers. They typically have their go-to book on their nightstand. What book's on your nightstand?
Well, you should ask, the question should be, what book is in your ear? Because I'm an audiobook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, I will listen to audiobook summaries, and if I hear a good one, then I'll go and download the entire book. Mm-hmm. But one that I've been listening to lately is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Okay.
The Stoic.
Meditations.
Who has this incredible philosophy, and it goes back to, again, the idea that people who lived hundreds of years, if not thousands of years before us, still had the same problems. And we can learn so much from them, especially the great wisdom that they give us. I mean, look at all that we find in the Bible. You know, if the Bible had never been discovered, let's say the Bible was written, but it was for hundreds of years, no one even knew it existed. And all of a sudden we find this book, we start reading all these unbelievable stories and parables and ideas and inspiration. It's still there. It's valid. And that to me is very exciting to hear from people in the past. I also love reading biographies. One of my favorites is Benjamin Franklin.
Ben Franklin.
Yeah,
okay.
Because he did everything. You know, he was a publisher. Mm-hmm. You know, he was an orator. Yeah. He was he was the first postmaster general. Do you know that the idea of a milestone came from his? People didn't, and of course this is just my version of it. People didn't know. If you got a letter, you went to the general store and said, "Did I get a letter?" "Yeah." "Where'd it come from?" "Philadelphia." "Give me 20 cents." You know, there was just kind of an idea of what you would charge for something. But then there was this thing called, there was this wheel on a cart that would go around so many times, and every time it went a mile, they'd put a stone down. So now they knew how far it was from one town to the next, and those were milestones.
Milestones.
Yeah,
How about that?
and that's then they could then charge the proper amount for the letter. But yeah, Benjamin Franklin.
That's outstanding.
Quite a guy.
The legendary Sonny Melendrez.
The legendary Cedric
It's been a real
Fisher.
privilege. Thank you for coming
pleasure.
on the show.
Thank you. My pleasure. And congratulations.
Thank you, sir. See you next time.